When worlds collide. The inevitable discovery came during the morning meal in the common area. Marcus and Viry had tried to maintain their usual professional distance, but the bond had grown too strong. Her colors responded to him involuntarily now, shifting and brightening whenever he was near, pulsing in perfect synchronization with his heartbeat even across the room. Captain Irina Vex noticed first. The Thessaran military officer approached their table, her own skin displaying the controlled steel gray of authority. Viry Shelkara, I need to speak with you. Privately. Viry's colors flickered with anxiety, violet streaked with silver, but she stood with dignity. Of course, Captain. Marcus watched them leave, his stomach knotting with dread. Across the dining area, he noticed other Thessarans staring, whispering behind their hands. Dr. Park slid into the seat beside him. That didn't look good, James muttered. No. It didn't. 20 minutes later, Marcus's communication panel chimed. Dr. Reeve, report to conference room 7 immediately. Captain Irina's voice was clipped, formal, and very, very cold. The conference room was small and austere. Viry stood near the viewport, her back to the door, her skin a tumultuous storm of colors barely contained. Captain Irina stood beside the table, arms crossed, her expression carved from stone. Sit, Dr. Reeve, Irina commanded. Marcus sat, his eyes never leaving Viry. She wouldn't look at him, but her colors betrayed everything, the violet deepening, rose gold bleeding through, the patterns swirling faster as his presence affected her. Do you know what you've done? Irina's voice could have cut steel. Do you comprehend the situation you've created? Captain, I. The Lumareth. Irina slammed her hand on the table. I have served for 30 years, and I have never witnessed it. Most believe it extinct, a genetic anomaly that died out generations ago. And yet here stands Viry Shelkara, daughter of the High Council's third family, displaying every symptom of a soul bond with a human. An alien. A species we met mere weeks ago. Marcus met her gaze steadily. I didn't plan this. Neither of us did. Intent is irrelevant. Irina moved closer, her colors flashing with barely controlled anger. What matters is consequence. I have already sent preliminary reports to the council. Viry's family has been notified. And the response? She glanced at Viry, her expression softening fractionally. They are demanding immediate return to Thessara VII for examination and treatment. The severing, Viry whispered, finally turning. Her face was streaked with tears, her colors pulsing erratically. They want to sever the bond. It is the only logical solution, Irina said, though her tone suggested she took no pleasure in it. Viry, you know this cannot be allowed to continue. Your family's standing, the political implications. I do not care about politics. Viry's colors exploded into brilliant, chaotic light. This is my life, my soul. You cannot ask me to cut away a part of myself. It is not a request. Irina's voice gentled. Child, I have known you since you were young. I understand this is painful. But the Lumareth with a human? The council will never accept it. Your people will never accept it. You will be ostracized, your family shamed, and for what? A connection that defies nature itself. It doesn't defy nature, Marcus interjected. It is nature. The bond chose, Captain. We didn't force it, didn't manufacture it. If this is truly the Lumareth, then according to your own ancient texts, it's sacred. It's meant to be honored, not destroyed. The texts speak of bonds within our species, Irina countered. They say nothing of aliens. They speak of bonds across the stars, Viry said suddenly, her voice gaining strength. I have read them too, Captain. The oldest texts, the ones written before we achieved space travel. They speak of the Lumareth choosing across the vastness of the cosmos, where souls call to souls regardless of form. Our ancestors understood something we have forgotten. Irina stared at her. You are grasping at interpretation. Am I? Or have we simply become so rigid in our thinking that we cannot see the truth when it manifests before us? Vairi crossed to Marcus and took his hand. Her colors immediately unified, that breathtaking pattern of violet, rose gold, and silver pulsing in perfect harmony. Look at this, Captain. Truly look. Have you ever seen a display this pure, this stable, this complete? The texts describe it exactly. This is not a mistake. This is not corruption. This is the Lumareth as it was meant to be. For a long moment, Arena simply stared at their joined hands, at the way Vairi's light seemed to embrace Marcus, to include him in its rhythm. Something flickered across the captain's face, wonder, perhaps, or grief for something lost. It does not matter what I see, she finally said. The council has made their decision. A transport ship arrives in 3 days to bring you home, Vairi. The severing will be performed immediately upon arrival.
No.
Marcus stood, still holding Vairi's hand. You can't force her to do this. I do not have to force her. Thessaran law is clear. Vairi is of the High Council bloodline. She serves at their pleasure and submits to their judgment. This is not a democracy, Dr. Reeve. This is our way. Then your way is wrong, Marcus said flatly. The room fell silent. Arena's skin flashed with dangerous crimson. You would lecture us on our own culture. I would defend the person I love from being mutilated for the crime of feeling. Marcus's voice rang with conviction. You talk about honor and tradition, but what honor is there in destroying something sacred? What tradition demands you torture one of your own people because she had the audacity to connect with someone unexpected? Marcus, Vairi whispered, squeezing his hand. But he wasn't finished. 3 days ago, I read your medical texts about the severing. Do you know what they really say? That severed individuals lose more than their colors. They lose joy, connection, the ability to deeply feel. They become shells. Functional, but not truly alive. And you want to do that to her because her biology didn't check with your council first. Arena's colors rippled with something that might have been shame, quickly suppressed. I have my orders. Then disobey them. Marcus heard the desperation in his own voice. You said you've known Vairi since she was young. You care about her. Help us. The captain looked at Vairi, who stood trembling, her colors begging silently for mercy. For a moment, Arena's rigid composure cracked, revealing the conflict beneath. I cannot, she said quietly. I am sorry, Vairi. Truly. But I cannot help you. She left without another word. Vairi collapsed into Marcus's arms, her body racked with sobs, her colors dimming with despair. He held her tightly, his own eyes burning with tears. We'll find a way, he promised. We'll find a way. But even as he said it, he felt the cold grip of fear. They had 3 days. 3 days to change the minds of an entire culture, or lose each other forever. That night, they didn't speak of plans or escape or politics. They simply held each other in Marcus's quarters, skin to skin, her colors flowing over both of them like a living thing. They made love slowly, tenderly, each touch a defiance of the fate closing in around them. Vairi's light grew so bright it filled the entire room, and Marcus felt the bond deepen, felt himself becoming part of her luminescence, her rhythm, her very soul. When dawn cycle came, they lay entwined, neither willing to let go. Whatever happens, Vairi whispered against his chest, I will never regret this. Never regret you. Marcus kissed her forehead, her colors pulsing warm against his lips. Then let's give them something they can't ignore. Let's show them what the Lumareth really means. She looked up at him, hope sparking in her eyes. What do you have in mind? We fight. Not with violence, but with truth. We make them see what they're trying to destroy. Vairi's colors blazed brighter, determination replacing despair. Together. Together. Outside, the stars wheeled on, indifferent to the battle about to begin. But inside that small room, 2 souls bound across species and space prepared to defend their love against the universe itself. The silence after thunder. The door to Derek's quarters sealed behind him with a hiss that felt too final, like the closing of a tomb. He stood motionless for several seconds, still wearing most of his combat gear, feeling the weight of it pressing down on shoulders that had carried too much today. The battle for the northern ridge on Tharos 9 had been brutal, a grinding, desperate affair that had cost both humans and Kirati warriors far too many lives. Derek finally moved, his fingers working mechanically at the clasps of his chest plate. The armor came away with reluctance, revealing the sweat-soaked uniform beneath. He could still smell the acrid tang of plasma fire, still hear the screams of soldiers on both sides. The alliance between Earth's forces and the Kirati clans had been forged out of necessity when the Ravager fleets had arrived, but it remained fragile, held together by little more than shared desperation. He had just managed to remove his helmet when the door chimed, then opened without waiting for his response. Derek spun, instinctively reaching for the sidearm he'd just set down. But his hand froze halfway. Commander Zyphira Calven stood in his doorway. She was unmistakable, nearly 7 feet tall, her powerful frame still clad in the distinctive midnight blue armor of the Kirati elite. Battle damage marked the plates, scorch marks, dents, a crack along the right pauldron that glowed faintly with the energy shielding beneath. Her skin bore the deep bronze tones of her people, and her hair, a striking silver white that marked her as a high-born warrior, was pulled back in the traditional combat braids. But it was her eyes that held Derek captive, a brilliant violet that seemed to burn with inner fire. Those eyes studied him with an intensity that made his breath catch. "Captain Hayes," she said, her voice carrying the melodic accent of her people, words shaped by a throat designed for both speech and the harmonic battle cries that terrified enemies. "I must speak with you." Derek straightened, trying to recover his composure. "Commander, I wasn't expecting anyone. Especially not." "I know." She stepped inside, and the door closed behind her. "This violates your protocols. And mine." Her jaw tightened, and Derek realized with shock that she looked uncertain, an expression he'd never seen on the face of the warrior who'd single-handedly held the eastern flank today. "But I have no choice. I must ask you something that my people, that I—" She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. "Do you desire me?" The question hung in the air like a live grenade. Derek's mind went blank. Of all the things he'd expected, a tactical debrief, news of casualties, even a challenge to his command decisions, this was so far beyond comprehension that he couldn't form words. Zyphira's expression shifted, something vulnerable flickering across her features. "You don't understand. There's a tradition among my people. A bond. And tonight, on that battlefield—" Her hand moved to her chest, pressing against the armor over her heart. "I felt the flame touch ignite. For you." The bonding fire. Derek finally found his voice, though it came out rougher than intended. "Zyphira, I don't. What are you talking about? Flame touch." She moved deeper into the room, her movements precise despite the obvious tension in her frame. For a moment, she simply stood there, and Derek noticed something he'd never seen before. Her hands were trembling slightly at her sides. "Among my people," she began, her accent thickening with emotion, "there exists a phenomenon we call the flame touch. It is rare, sacred, and completely beyond our control." She turned to face him fully, and in the dim light of his quarters, he could see faint patterns glowing beneath her skin, bioluminescent marks that traced along her neck and disappeared beneath her armor. When a Kirati warrior fights beside someone whose courage, whose spirit, resonates with theirs at a fundamental level, something awakens. A connection. A bond that burns like fire in our chest. Derek's heart was pounding now. "And you felt this, with me?" "Yes." The word came out like a confession. "In the middle of the battle, when you held the line even when your forces were breaking. When you stood between my warriors and that artillery strike, even though you had no obligation to protect us." Her violet eyes met his, burning with an intensity that made his breath catch. "I felt it ignite. And now—" She pressed her hand harder against her chest. "Now it will not stop. It grows stronger with every moment we remain unresolved." Unresolved. Derek took a step closer, drawn by something he couldn't name. "What does that mean?" Zyphira's jaw tightened. The flame touch must be acknowledged. Confronted. Before dawn, the bond must be either accepted or rejected by both parties. if it is ignored. She looked away, and Derek saw the proud warrior struggling with vulnerability. The pain becomes unbearable. Physical. Psychological. It has driven some of my people to madness. The weight of her words settled over Derek like a heavy cloak. So you came here because you had to. Not because you wanted to. No. She turned back sharply, and suddenly she was closer, close enough that he could see the subtle patterns of darker bronze that traced across her skin like tiger stripes. You misunderstand. I came because I must know the truth of what I feel. Because standing on that battlefield, watching you fight with everything you had, I felt something I have never felt before. And it terrifies me. Derek's throat went dry. Terrifies you? I am Commander Zyphira Calven. I have led armies. I have conquered worlds. I show no weakness, no hesitation, no fear. Her voice dropped lower, almost breaking. But tonight, human, you have unmade me with your courage. And I do not know how to bear it. The silence stretched between them, charged with unspoken emotion. Derek realized his own hands were shaking now. Because he understood, perhaps had understood from the moment she'd walked through his door. The pull he'd felt toward her wasn't just respect or admiration. On that battlefield, when she'd fought beside him, when their eyes had met across the chaos and something had passed between them like lightning. I felt it too, he whispered. Zyphira's eyes widened, the glow beneath her skin brightening. You, humans don't have the flame touch. How could you? Maybe we don't have a name for it. Derek took another step closer, and now they were barely an arm's length apart. Maybe we don't have glowing marks or ancient traditions. But I felt something today, Zyphira. When you saved my soldiers from that collapsing bunker. When you looked at me like you could see straight through all my armor, all my ranks and titles, down to who I really am. He swallowed hard. I can't stop thinking about you. She was breathing harder now, her chest rising and falling beneath the armor. This is forbidden. Your people and mine, we are allies only by necessity. If our superiors knew. I don't care. The words came out before Derek could stop them, but he didn't take them back. Because they were true. Standing here, looking into those violet eyes, feeling the magnetic pull between them, nothing else seemed to matter. Zyphira reached up slowly, her hand hovering near Derek's face but not quite touching. If we do this, if we acknowledge the bond, there is no going back. The flame touch, once accepted, marks us both. Forever. Derek's heart hammered against his ribs. Show me.